So today's conversation is largely geared towards Tom and Jackie's experience with BrightBuilt to date. To set the stage a little bit, they are currently in, they have finished design and their home is about to go into production at the factory, brought to their site this fall, and then completed on site. So that's where they are in the process. And I'm jumping ahead a little bit because I'm a little disheveled as we had a kerfuffled start, but let me take a step back and introduce myself and then hand it over to Tom and Jackie so that they can introduce themselves as well. So everyone can get familiar with kind of a little bit of the backstory before we dive into the specifics on their project. So I'm Parlin Meyer. I'm managing principal at BrightBuilt. I have been part of BrightBuilt since its inception in 2013, so I have seen it evolve and grow through all of its different phases and stages. And it's, really the thing that makes everything we do at BrightBuilt worthwhile is the folks that we get to work with. And so this webinar today is a real pleasure to put together and to host, and I'm really looking forward to the questions that come through and the story that Tom and Jackie have to share. With us today as well is Orion Poulin. Some of you in the attendees in the audience may well be familiar with Orion already. He's our head of regional sales, and he's the first face and the first voice that generally most folks talk to when they're entering into the process and exploring how they might work with BrightBuilt and what BrightBuilt's all about. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Tom and Jackie so that they can introduce themselves and tell a little bit of their story.
Sure. Thanks, Marlon. Thanks for having us today. Really appreciate it. And thank you, Ryan. By means of introduction, I'm Tom Burchard.
I'm Jackie Burchard.
We are living in Winchester, Massachusetts. So that's about 8 miles outside of Boston. We've been living here for about coming up on 35 years. We've got a 1916 two-family house that we're currently living in. Fortunate enough to bring our daughters up here. They're both graduated college and fully employed, so we are empty nesters. Also recently, or for a long time, had my mom in the first floor apartment, so it was sort of a multi-generational living. We've got her moved on down to where my sister's living in North Carolina in anticipation of selling the house in about a month's time. So we've been very busy renovating that apartment and getting the house ready so that we can move on to our BrightBuilt home, which we're very much looking forward to. As far as background, I studied, for 2 years I studied architecture in college, and then ended up switching to industrial design. So I'm a product designer by training. Spent the last 40 plus years helping companies to design products and services and environments, experiences, all to help them grow their companies. So I come from a design background. I retired last November. And again, I don't feel like I've retired because we've been working on the house just about every day since then, but it feels like a full-time job. I just don't get the paycheck anymore. So Jackie, you want to do a little introduction?
Sure. As you heard, we've been in this house for 35 years. We're actually looking forward to a brand new home. It's been a really wonderful experience working with BrightBuilt. As far as interests, I love gardening. I volunteered at organic farm for about 6 years, so that's been really fun. And I also love cooking. And I'm really looking forward to a brand new kitchen.
You're here.
All right, thank you both. That's great context for everyone to have moving into the discussion about kind of big picture. I think a good place to start would be just to cue up or tee up a little bit of the backstory with what brought you to BrightBuilt,
Sure.
what you were seeking, how you found us. And what ultimately helped you make the decision to work with us. We'll start in broad strokes, and then there's some great questions coming in already. So maybe we'll dive into questions after that.
Yeah, happy to provide some context. So let's see. We spend a lot of time in Maine. We're obviously in Massachusetts right now. So I went to camp in Wiscasset for about 7 years. Actually, multiple generations of my family went there. So very familiar with Maine. We also have a lake house up in Poland that we've had for about 28 years. So as we started thinking about retirement and our forever home, we knew we wanted to be in Maine. And so back in about 2017, we started looking at land. I'm kind of a Redfin junkie, so every morning I'm on Redfin looking at properties. And it wasn't a full-time sort of full bore search. It was we'd find some land, and if we were up for the weekend, we would go and take a peek at a piece of property just to see if it was something that suited us or met our needs. And so I think it was around January 2022. We ended up finding a place in Southport, just south of Boothbay, and headed up in the dead of winter.
It was cold.
I think it was like 20 below actual temperature with the wind blowing. So it was about a 15-minute jaunt outside the car to take a look at the property and the ocean. And even with that extreme weather, I think Jackie had mentioned we've got to buy this place. And so we were fortunate enough to make an offer and have it accepted. And then we realized we need to really get serious about finding an architectural partner that can help us figure out our dream home. So started doing some research. Initially was we were looking at land. I'll speak for myself. I think I had my heart set on a timber frame home. I just love the joinery and the exposed structure, the detailing. But I think as we zeroed in on the land that we bought, we realized we're really close to the ocean. We're at the end of the island. We've got some potential for extreme weather. And I think we also sort of had an awakening around some of the needs that we were going to have as we would live in this house. So ease of maintenance and lower cost to run. So that got us interested in really net zero. And so doing some internet searches, found a few companies, obviously BrightBuilt being one of those, and just did a lot of desktop research, trying to understand what was going to work for us, what companies sort of presented themselves in different ways. And we ended up going to some of the BrightBuilt open houses, also did a meeting in Portland at your office to basically understand the process and what would be involved. And I think that, along with just the case studies of the homes that you had, really clinched the deal for us. We felt that the work that you guys had done really sort of stood head and shoulders above the other companies that we were looking at. Not that they weren't good. It was just, I think the style of the homes spoke more to the vernacular of New England homes. We're in an association right now that's really trying to preserve the look and feel of the classic Maine coast. And so we needed a home that was going to be sort of fit in with our neighbors and fit into the community. And so the BrightBuilt homes just really spoke really well to us and seemed like a perfect fit, where some of the others were very modern. They felt like long and low. There were flat roofs that weren't going to work in New England. So BrightBuilt was just a clear choice for us, especially having met folks at some of the open houses and being able to sort of, if you will, kick the tires and walk through some of the homes. So it was, for us, it was an easy choice.
That's great to hear. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And also, that's a really great point. That's something that we've definitely made a lot of effort to capture, is the Maine vernacular. So I'm glad to hear that kind of design ethos and design intent has resonated for you all, and is doing its job as far as what our goals are with the designs.
Absolutely.
So we do have, I'm going to probably jump around a little bit in the questions. If you are in the audience and you have entered a question, I'm trying to select those that are either broad stroke to start or relevant to the specific topic that is being shared in the moment. So won't necessarily go in order, but I think I'm going to start with, what was your biggest surprise while working on this project so far?
You want to answer that?
Well, we chose a model, and we actually thought that we were going to have a full basement. And going through just getting the site ready, we found out that no, we can't have a basement. And so that actually affected a lot of our design decisions that we had made, but we were able to pivot and make it all work. So we had a lot of challenges that with our design team we were able to overcome, which was pretty wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest surprises, those surprises can be good and bad. I mean, the good surprise was just the level of collaboration that we had with the BrightBuilt team was just awesome. We really felt like we had partners and people that we could challenge each other. So Audrey was our architect and Alex was our project pilot. And as we hit some of these challenges, we had to make different decisions. And so we'd come in with solutions and Audrey would have solutions and we'd kind of pressure test this. And it was a very healthy dialogue in the sense that it allowed us to raise both pros and cons so that we felt like we were making an informed choice and we understood the implications of how we might solve that challenge that we had. I think the tough challenge that really had nothing to do with BrightBuilt, but more of our site. We have a site that's very challenging, as you know, Parlin. It's got a lot of wetland. There's a stream that comes through it, and it's not like it's a swamp, but it's protected through a buffer zone. And so we had some real challenges from how we could fit into that. About 80% of the lot, which is a 1 acre lot, is designated wetland. The other is ledge and kind of elevated ledge. So quite literally, we were between a rock and a wet place. So working with your team and also partnering with a civil engineering team to try and fit the house into the lot in a way that would both meet the regulations as well as meet the needs that we had and the expectations we had for our home was a surprise. We knew we were getting into wetland, but I think it was probably a bigger challenge than we thought, but thrilled with the way it worked out.
Yeah, you all definitely had quite, Tom and Jackie went through quite the rigmarole with various regulatory agencies. Definitely isn't the norm, I would say. Was a little bit of an exception to the rule when it comes to site work and pulling permits and doing all of the legwork necessary to submit for building. This is actually one question that's somewhat related. This is from Eric. Did you select any subcontractors on your own, or are you leaving this up to the GC? Specifically, was the GC responsible for coordinating the site work and permits?
Yeah, great question. So the general contractor, our dear friend Tom, the builder, has really pulled together folks that he trusts and that he's worked with. So as far as subcontractors for the actual site work and the build, we're really leaving up to him. What I would sort of an ancillary to that, one of the things we've really enjoyed, though, sort of stepping back to the design process, is the network of people that we've been connected with throughout the process. So BrightBuilt introduced us to our builder, who's fantastic. It's just a really good fit for us. The builder introduced us to a civil engineering firm because we needed to get site work done and basically get surveys and understand regulations. That worked out really well. He also introduced us to a landscape architect. So there's been this network of not only his subcontractors, but the team that helped get us to the design that has worked really well with a common ethos and a real, I would say, a team spirit that's allowed us to not have to go out and vet and hire individual components of pulling this together. So the fact that you guys have this team that has worked together and done houses similar to ours just gave us a sense of peace of mind and a level of confidence that was really important.
Great. Yeah. And I will add just that customarily, the general contractors are the entity that will pull the permit and handle all the site work. There are instances in which if that question was coming from a specific point of view from someone who wants to bring in a specific subcontractor, it's not completely atypical for that to be the case. If someone either has an excavator that they know, or someone in the family who does tile work or something like that, then it's certainly within the realm of possibility in most cases to do that. This next question is a little bit of a softball. I'm just going to throw it out there because I think it's actually pointed at me. The question is, are you in the Little Diamond model? And in fact, Orion and I are both in the Little Diamond model. We're in a background, so it is a little diamond. We're in the same house, in fact, but we're actually roughly 1,000 miles apart from each other, I think, literally. So yes, this is a little diamond that was completed about 3 years ago in Cape Cod. To answer that question. So I'm gonna keep going, but thank you for your question. That was from Kenneth. Moving on, this is also from Kenneth, actually, just a quick question in response to Jackie, you noting the inability to make a basement work for your site specifically. The question is, will you have a crawl space?
Yes, we will have a very small crawl space. It's no more than 3 or 4 feet, I believe.
5, yeah.
And that's about it. There's not really going to be anything within that space. All of the heating, water heater, that kind of thing will be within the floor plan of the building.
Yeah, the first floor. So yeah, it was being in New England or a basement is something that we were counting on, but it was really the builder that, I mean, it was in the plans, but the builder, after really looking at the site, once we were able to break ground, realized that just with the wetland, we were asking for trouble. In fact, we also had to build a retaining wall, 150-foot retaining wall, just to really make sure that we were set up for success as we were getting into the house. So it was, yeah, so we've looked at that was a challenge. So one of the things that we've been doing is figuring out how can we repurpose different parts of the house to get the kind of storage that we're looking for. So it's the analogy I've been using, right or wrong, has been it's like in a ship. You want to try and use every square inch that you have to figure out how can we use that to store things. We're definitely going to use the area above the garage. So it's just one of those times where you have to pivot and look at alternative solutions. So we didn't want that to be a game, stopper.
Yeah, we also, with the design, we wanted 1-floor living eventually. So we had that in our mindset that we could live on 1 floor as we aged. So that was very important to us too.
This actually is a question pertinent to what we've just been discussing about the site challenges that had presented themselves. It's from Alex. It is, at what point did these challenges present themselves and how did this impact the cost?
Yeah, so we knew we had significant wetland at the point of purchase. And then I spoke to somebody from the Department of Environmental Protection who knows the regulations and said it's a very buildable lot. So really, without probably doing enough due diligence, we went ahead and bought the property. As we started digging in, we started with you guys, obviously, and got through the first design iterations. And it came pretty clear that we needed to do a site survey, really get a topographic map, fully understand the elevations and the wetland a bit better. And then it wasn't until we started dealing with our civil engineering team that we fully understood the complications that we had for dealing with the wetland and how much land that we could actually take from the wetland to use as our building lot. As it turns out, the wetland is regulated by the Maine Department of Environmental Protection because we have a stream. I'll call it a stream. It's 12 inches wide and 8 inches deep, but they found it and designated it as such. The Army Corps of Engineers is also a regulatory body that we had to abide by because they oversee the navigable waters of the United States. Apparently, this is a navigable water, but I'd like to see that. But anyway, we had to. It sort of unfolded over time, I guess, to get back to the question. And so we did have to make some adjustments for moving the house. We wanted a 3-car garage. We had to minimize that to a 2. There were just things, the driveway and other things had to be sort of tightened. I think if we had gone in and looked at the land first, would have been the right approach, and then figure out what house we wanted to put on it. What ended up happening is we fell in love with the Yarmouth Little Diamond. And sort of had our heart set on that. And fortunately, at the end of the day, we're able to shoehorn that in perfectly, meet the regulations, get the permit, and really get everything that we were looking for out of the home. So it wasn't one of those days where we just realized, oh boy, we've got some challenges here. They sort of unfolded over time. And I think you just have to realize there's going to be challenges like this that come up in any kind of new project. It's a matter of when and how big they are. Some are showstoppers. Others, you just need to pivot and really focus on the things that are important to you, and then find solutions for the things that perhaps didn't meet your expectations, but are still workable. And that's really the approach we took.
Great. And that you just answered one of Vanessa's questions, which was, which model did Tom and Jackie choose?
Yeah, I think we were looking at something, I don't know if it was Vinyl Haven or there was another model initially. And speaking with the team at BrightBuilt, the recommendation was, we'll take a look at Little Diamond. And it's a little smaller than we were thinking, but as we looked at it and then found the case study on the Yarmouth one, it just really, it hit home. We love the layout. I mean, you're seeing it here in the background with Parlin. Just very open plan with a lot of light coming in, single floor living, as Jackie had mentioned. There were just so many things about it that we could have started with a clean sheet of paper, but we were so far down the lane now with this model that met all of our needs. We could really focus on the details and the fit and the finishes, and make the personal decisions that would make that house our house, while the rest of it really was just perfect for what we were hoping for. And I don't think we walked in with that vision, but having seen it really helped it click in our mind, like this was something that we really wanted. So.
And then as a piggyback to that, a question from Kenneth, will you have a second floor with bedrooms for family and guests?
Yes. So much like the background that Parlin's in, we've got a bedroom at either end, as well as an office space upstairs. So we were hoping to put our fitness room in the basement, but due to the crawl space, that didn't happen. So the office space became the fitness space for our bike and our rower, and then the upstairs loft area, which is where Parlin is virtually sitting right now, will be our home office. Yeah, we'll have 3 bedrooms total, 2.5 baths, and a mudroom that connects to the garage.
Great. And that actually semi-answers. I'm gonna group a couple questions together because they're interrelated and we've touched on them a little bit. So you might be able to kind of do a quick response to all of them. One is, would you be willing to share the name of the builder? Another is, are you drilling a well and or having the driveway work done? It says through BrightBuilt, but of course it's through a general contractor for the actual construction on site. So just some questions about driveway and well. And then also, have any outbuildings / garage been planned as far as the site layout is concerned? And if so, who is designing these? So
lots of questions.
Yeah, try to group them all together.
Yeah, so I'll try and hit them from the top. So our builder is Tom Greenleaf. So he's done a number of homes for BrightBuilt, was pitched to us as one of their best builders. And for us, I mean, that was important, but I think even more so was the personal connection with Tom. I think as soon as we met him, it was just like, wow, this is somebody I really want to work with. He really wanted to do our house in Southport, even with all the delays, he made it work. So that felt like a match made in heaven, which was great. As far as
well, yeah.
Well, yes, we just drilled a well. So
well has been drilled.
We hit water at 400 feet, which was a little further down than we expected, but we're getting 5 gallons.
We have a good flow. So
yeah, 5 gallons a minute.
Nice.
So we're feeling good. We didn't hit salt water, which is good.
Also good.
So we have a well. The septic was actually already, the leaching field was already there. So as they laid out the association, because of the wetland on our site, they had put an easement that allowed us to have, and they actually built back in 1988, the leaching field. So it was just yesterday that was connected to our septic. This was all done under the excavator who Tom Greenleaf hired as part of his team. Yeah, and he's been great too. He's just been awesome. As far as outbuildings, we don't have any outbuildings. Again, we're really tight as far as how much land that we can use. There's a much longer story around how many square feet you can get and the cost if you go over certain ones, but we can save that for another time. But you do have a garage. The garage was designed by BrightBuilt because we were originally going to have a 3-car and now really down to a 2-car. We extended the height of the garage, and we'll be putting in a car lift to handle 3 cars so that one of the bays will actually have a car lift. I've got a car that I put away in the winter, so it'll sit quietly on top. But so that was one accommodation we did have to make, was get 12-foot ceilings to be able to do that.
Nice. Great. In answering those 3 questions together, you also answered a 4th, which was from Eric, which was, what was the process like for selecting the general contractors? So I feel like you covered that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Eric, for that question. I think this one might be a good one to kind of pivot to, which is, and there's 2 that are somewhat similar. Sorry, I'm moving around here. What has the timeline been like so far from signing with BrightBuilt to designing to identifying builders, site work, and breaking ground, etc.? Thank you. That's from Eric as well.
Yeah.
Extra long.
Yeah, longer than we anticipated. I mean, so we had bought the property in January or March, I think, finally, of 2022. And we waited a while. We're like, oh, I'm not going to retire for another 4 or 5 years, so there's no rush. As it turns out, we engaged you guys. It was Jackie's birthday. We had the kickoff. Parlin was there. And I think we ended up doing design iterations up through the end of that year. So about 3 months worth of work, which is when the realization came that the builder and ourselves had looked at the site and realized that we really got to get a better understanding of how we're going to place this house on there. And we thought that would be about a couple months delay. It ended up being a full year. And so thank you to BrightBuilt for accommodating this long pause or hiatus that we had. We hadn't anticipated it would be that long. But we did have to go spend a year not only getting approval from our HOA for the siting of the house, and we weren't approved on the first one. We had to go back and make some modifications. And then with that, we felt confident going to the DEP and the Army Corps of Engineers, because we didn't want to go to them with anything that the association wasn't going to approve, because the timelines for, as you can imagine, for federal agencies and state agencies is much longer. Finally got that, and it was about a year later that we ended up, it was this just past, January or so?
That we got the permit.
That we got the permit, and we re-engaged, sort of picked up right where we left off, which was great. But in that year that we were on hiatus, there was a lot of communication. So BrightBuilt was very aware of where we were and what we were tackling, and that our intentions were still to move forward. And so we picked up right where we left off. We finished the selections work. We did our lighting plan. And then it was just the beginning of this month, just a month ago, that we had our
final construction.
Yeah, we had the
Production kickoff.
Production kickoff. Thank you.
Yeah.
I was looking for the word.
Yeah.
So right now we're ready to place the order with the factory. We did break ground around Christmas to answer the contractor piece. So right after Christmas, we broke ground, and they've been working diligently. So we've got the retaining, well, they cleared the lot. We've got a retaining wall. The foundation is in, the septic's in. We've got a well, we've got a driveway. So right now we're going to just hit pause, and we're awaiting set day, which will probably be in September or early October. We've got a building moratorium for our association. A lot of people come up for the summer, and so there's no building between middle of June and middle of September. They don't want exterior construction sort of disturbing all the neighbors. So we have a period that we really can't move on. And so we're gonna, as soon as that window closes, we're gonna come in with the modules and then finish her up. Hopefully by, I would say, spring of 2027, we should be able to jump into it. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, so that thank you. That was a really, really good illustration, Tom, of sort of not only kind of the arc of the process, but also sometimes the need to pause when there are mitigating factors that come up. And I do want to console people, I guess, or encourage them. Not, I don't want them to feel dissuaded, because I will say, Tom and Jackie, as we already noted, were sort of uniquely confronted with a multitude of factors. And Tom, you mentioned the Army Corps of Engineers and the DEP, and those are two agencies that don't customarily get involved with single family home construction unless there are really special site circumstances, such as wetlands, such as, rivers or waterways. So if you are looking at sites right now and there are wet conditions on site, whether it's a designated wetland or a pond or a stream or something of those characteristics, be mindful of what the restrictions are. What are the setbacks, that sort of thing. So it's good to know that when you're looking for land, and to be aware of the possible constraints to be knowledgeable about, or ask the realtor about, and some of that information was conveyed, obviously, when Tom and Jackie bought their land, but there are finer elements of the process and getting everything through with permits that can be a deeper dive than you realize. But in most cases, we don't talk to DEP. We don't talk to Army Corps. We're not necessarily having to bring in civil engineers. In many, many cases, it's fairly straightforward. And it's really just pulling a permit with the town, which is a pretty standard practice for all GCs. So, so that said, in terms of the timeline, just to kind of, if folks were sort of doing the math in their heads while Tom was talking, it essentially represents about a 4 to 6 month, all told, design process, typically, and then construction, generally anywhere from about 6 to 8 months, all told. Assuming, of course, and if it's modular, as has already been the case in Tom and Jackie's project, site work has begun, ground has been broken, everything has been prepped. So under normal circumstances, without the building moratorium that the HOA has, we'd be seeing the modules coming in, early to midsummer. And so, just kind of continuing on the pace of the timeline. So always different circumstances with every project, but generally speaking, it's roughly a 12 to 16 month process if everything is kind of going in sequence as per typical for the process. So that answered a couple more questions that had come in regarding timeline. One quick question about the case study in the Yarmouth Little Diamond. There was a question on whether or not that's on the BrightBuilt website. We just changed our website approximately a week ago. So that case study actually isn't on the website at the moment, but you can certainly get access to it, and we can email, we always will share any information that you might have previously seen on the older website, or that you're interested in seeing based on conversations you might have, or information from today's webinar. Reach out to Orion. He can send you printouts, PDFs, packets, info galore. So that is certainly still available if folks are interested in seeing that. Okay, trying to look at some other questions. Sorry, let me go through here. One question that's always the golden question. This is from Allison. Have you stayed on budget so far? And
yeah.
Kind of process.
Have we stayed on budget so far? The answer, I believe, is yes. I mean, we had a range that we got initially in speaking with BrightBuilt. When we met with the builder, we had that was sort of refined a bit more based on a lot of the choices that we made, and so that fit within our budget. but we don't have the final. You know, we aren't done yet, so it's hard to say. Like things come up, like the retaining wall that was not in budget. 150-foot retaining wall was not planned. Has nothing to do with the house and everything to do with the lot. So things do come up that might surprise you. But thus far with the house, we don't anticipate anything. It was really the site that was potentially a challenge as far as unknown and additional costs. I mean, the great thing about picking a house that's been already built and been through the factory and is a lot of that stuff is figured out, so there's a lot of knowns, and that gave us great confidence from a pricing standpoint. So things that may creep in are just those extras that we've decided, hey, if we're building a house once, we want this in the kitchen or we want that in the bathroom, and those are the ones that you sort of foist upon yourself and decide, do we want to spend a little extra money to get something if this is going to be our forever home? So, but in general, I would answer that yes, we're on budget.
We have a question here on construction loans, and I don't know how much of that you all have delved into. I can speak to that. I can field that question if that makes more sense.
We don't have one.
Yeah, we did a HELOC. So we're still, as you know, you can see it behind us. We're still in our house, so we're going to take the equity of this house to put into the new one, and as opposed to waiting till we sold this, it made sense to get a home equity line of credit. We did look into construction loans. The HELOC gave us a lot more flexibility as opposed to some of the site inspections for the extension of or delivery of further funds based on your progress. So we did look at both, but we chose the HELOC approach.
That's great. That's a really, really excellent way to do it. And yeah, like you said, it gives you a lot of flexibility. So if you are in a property that you have where you have good equity, it's a great avenue to explore. All right. There are a couple questions that are more directed at BrightBuilt and or me, which I'm going to hold off on for now. And we may or may not get to. There are still quite a few questions to get through. I will say, if there is any question that you pose through this webinar that we are either unable to get to or unable to answer, please do follow up with either myself or Orion, and we definitely can answer those questions more pointedly, more directly, and with more time to go into details if warranted. So trying to see, here's one that from Phil for how you all are achieving net zero. Are you doing solar PV? Are you kind of leaning into passive solar, thermal mass? And what are your strategies for getting to net zero?
Want me to go
on? We are not doing solar. Our association does not allow it. We are equipping the house for future, perhaps being able to do it, but for right now, we're not.
Yeah, so it's future proofed. We're gonna make sure that we've got room for everything, that the lines and everything are placed. Yeah, so for aesthetic reasons more than anything, they didn't want the solar panels on the roof. It's something that they haven't really weighed in on, and it's obviously an emerging technology where they need to probably make consideration. We also have a lot of tall trees, so this is the classic Maine coast where we've got tall trees right up to the Rocky Coast. It wasn't clear whether we would actually have the sun exposure that we were looking for. Now, with the lot cleared and the foundation in, it seems like this is something that we could do. So we feel like we have the option open, which is great. So designing it in, but not actually implementing it is sort of the approach that we're taking.
Yeah, and that's a great point. Whether because of HOA constraints and covenants or because of shading or because of other reasons, that it's not entirely uncommon for folks to either not be able to install solar or to opt to do it at a later date. all the homes are always designed and constructed to be solar ready so that a solar array could be added at any time. And in Maine in particular, there's actually a fair amount of community solar access. So that's another means for folks to be on solar power, even if they don't have it directly on their site. So that's also worth looking into as an alternate means to get to net zero, essentially with your power consumption, if you can't do an array on your house directly. This, I think, might be a good semi-segue into talking a little bit about your construction approach journey. There was a little bit of a potential exploration into alternate approaches for construction. I'll read the question,
Sure.
Which is from Eric. And Eric, he said, sorry if I missed this. The home is modular in design, but are there any panel or stick-built components? So this is specific to the current approach to construction, but it might serve as a way to talk a little bit about some of the alternate options that were explored as well.
Sure. So the association that we're on, which is down in the Wagon, the very tip of Southport, are dirt roads. So they're private roads. They're dirt. They're fairly narrow. There is an inn that's actually a part of our association, interestingly enough. But it's narrow roads. So when KBS, which is the manufacturer for the modules, did a road test or a route test, the route was fine. It was really, once they got into the association, the roads were narrow and there were some tight turns that they were concerned about. So we did look into alternative methods. So our builder, Tom, had looked at potential for panelizing because of that. And then stick built was always sort of the backstop. If we had to do that, we could go and then do stick built. As it turns out, we had a meeting with the association. I think we had an arborist there that day. We had Tom was there, the excavator, and we walked the path and talked about any tree trimming that might have to happen. Trimming. We weren't removing any trees. And I think everybody walked away feeling like, yeah, this is doable. It's going to be a tight fit, but we're going to be able to get the modules in. So we're feeling comfortable that we can proceed with modular, which is really the approach that we wanted. As a designer, all the things I design were made in factories from a product standpoint. So the fact that we could take a house and take a similar approach made a ton of sense. And interestingly enough, the factory is about 20 minutes from our lake house. So while that's being constructed this summer, we're going to be able to go over and see it in progress and be able to see some of the magic of modular construction. So looking forward to that. As far as the stick-built components, the mudroom, I believe, will be stick-built by the builder, even though it is fully insulated. So that will have the 10-inch thick fully insulated walls. And then the garage is also going to be stick-built by the builder. So those components will be done after the modules are installed.
This is also, so this is sort of construction related. This is a question from Vanessa about what type of heating system you will be using. And if heat pumps, are you also going to be using a heat pump hot water heater?
Yeah, so we've got the mini splits, probably looking at Mitsubishi mini splits for heat pumps. So we'll have them in various zones in the house. We do have a gas fireplace, which is more for the aesthetics, but we'll be putting out heat. Mm-hmm. So that's an option there if it's, again, more for aesthetics. As far as the hot water, it will be an electric
high efficiency
hot water tank, a ream that we'll have on the first floor in one of the closets. So yeah, that's pretty much the heating.
And I'll add to that the logic behind that being a high efficiency electric resistance water heater is that with most typically we put heat pump water heaters into basements because they are fairly tall. The condenser unit that does all the magic of converting the temperature from the air into the heating component of the water sits on top of the water tank itself. So it ends up being a fairly tall unit. Furthermore, any heat pump water heater needs 1,000 cubic feet of airspace to run efficiently. And so with the crawl space being only 4 to 5 feet and the fact that it needs that much air volume, it really limits where and how we can get a heat pump water heater to work within the living space itself. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the reasons that informs the selection of that system in this case. And the other factor may or maybe not at play in this case is that they do produce some noise. They make noise equivalent to about a dehumidifier. So it's not a significant amount of noise, but if it's near a sleeping space or near a living space, some opt out of selecting that because of that noise. So I'm going to move now to there's a question on geothermal. I might just take this really quickly. It's from Leonard. Has any homeowner contracted to use a geothermal heating system as part of the energy conservation? I will say in the few hundred homes that BrightBuilt has done in the last 13 years, none of them have done geothermal. That is largely driven by, I would say, 2 factors. One being it's a pretty prohibitive upfront capital cost to install a geothermal system. So that's one reason that many homeowners opt to not pursue it. The other factor is that air source heat pump technology has improved so significantly in the last 10 to 20 years that the gain ups that you would get from a geothermal system that made up for the inefficiencies or the lack of ability to perform in colder temperatures that were typical of air source heat pumps at the time there isn't as much of a delta there, and there isn't as much of a that gain up to pursue geothermal. So the motivation was somewhat diminished, and the cost is still not insignificant. So I would say those are the reasons why we haven't seen homeowners pursue geothermal systems, but they're still great systems. So it's not a commentary on the effectiveness or wisdom of geothermal. Okay, I'm going to continue to look through and see. I think the follow-up to what I just said is, would geothermal be plausible? And yes, geothermal would be plausible. So if someone wanted to pursue that, it is possible. This is a question that kind of circles back to some of the site questions that were, when we were talking about the site work. Might be a quick one, but the question was from Vanessa: how did you all learn that the Army Corps of Engineers needed to be involved? Was that something that the civil engineer determined? Was it the landscape architect? Who identified that aspect of the process?
Yeah, that was the civil engineers. Fortunately, the firm we dealt with, again, highly recommend them, very well versed in that. And she knew the regulations and informed us right away. Because at first we thought it was just the DEP, but she let us know that because of the stream, that in fact we'd also be dealing with the Army Corps of Engineers. So it was their expertise that really got us there fairly quickly after we engaged them.
Nice. I'm going to ask a question that was actually posed by the BrightBuilt team ahead of this. What has been your favorite part of the process of working with BrightBuilt Home?
For me, it was the guidance from just starting the design of the home. Everything was broken down into phases, so it never felt like an overwhelming experience. We tackled one phase and then it just led to another. And our architect, Audrey, was really wonderful in leading us through the whole process.
Yeah, I think my favorite part, we're about an hour and a half from Portland. So we had all of our meetings, I think just almost all of them in person. And so being in the room with your team, working through the challenges, working through the decisions, the collaboration, was just essential for me. And so that, being a designer, I require that out of my clients because this is something they're going to own at the end. So it needs to be collaborative. Happy to, put my expertise out there, but we really leaned on Audrey and Alex and yourself, Parlin, on some of the decisions that we're making to make sure that we had the information and the implications to make the right decision for the type of house we wanted, which was cost and utility and any of the things that we wanted. So having those open and honest and collaborative conversations was great. That was one of my favorite parts.
That's great. We are coming close to the end here, so I'm trying to find some of the last. Again, there are still questions on the list right now. I know I haven't answered all of them, or we haven't addressed all of them. Some of them appear to be directed more pointedly at BrightBuilt. And so I'm going to ask those who have posed those questions, please reach out to myself or Orion, and we can address those questions. Questions about whether we work in specific regions, questions about the design process in general. Actually, this is a good question for you, Jackie. This is from Vanessa. She says, for Jackie, she said she loves to cook and is looking forward to a new kitchen. Did BrightBuilt help her carefully consider all sorts of kitchen aspects? And just the process of the kitchen component?
Audrey gave us pretty much an layout of the kitchen. And as far as cabinetry and that kind of thing, we actually chose a European company, so we didn't go with the particular company that
KBS. The KBS
that KBS has.
Mm-hmm.
But Audrey was really helpful in figuring out where do I want drawers as opposed to having open doors, and how to utilize the space most efficiently.
Mm-hmm.
So she was key in helping figure out all of those things. She helped us with task lighting and that kind of thing. What else?
No, it was great. I think we kind of ran on our own. The option was to really get some of the cabinets that came through the manufacturer. We wanted a much more of a European feel. One of the things that we pushed for too was cabinets all the way to the ceiling. I think as folks will look at the Yarmouth one, they're sort of short of that. Again, with our limited storage, we wanted to maximize everything. So trying to find solutions that would allow us to store more in the kitchen were also key. It's largely based on the one that was in the Yarmouth house.
As far as layout.
We did make some tweaks and stuff, but Audrey was very helpful in being just a good sounding board for all of that.
Nice. Okay, we are at time, and I do apologize we didn't get through all the questions. I tried to get through those that were directed to Tom and Jackie specifically. Thank you for everybody that participated and posed your questions. Please follow up and bring them to us. I'm going to see if I can capture them actually, so that we can maybe follow up with the individuals if we have your contact information. But thank you so much, Tom and Jackie, for your time and your insights and your willingness to tell your story and share your story with others. Really, really deeply appreciate spending this time and the last couple of years of working with you as well.
It's been a pleasure on our end as well. So we've loved the relationship and looking forward to getting the house on the foundation, and can't wait to have you guys there on set day.
Yeah, we're really looking forward to that as well. All right. Thank you, everyone, for coming. This has been recorded, so if you want to watch it again, or if you have something you want to follow up on, please, you'll receive it in a follow-up from us. And otherwise, depending on where you are right now, do your best to have a lovely day. It's pouring at the moment in Maine, but nonetheless, all weather is good weather, and we need the rain. So thanks, everybody. Have a great afternoon.